So I was just talking to my sister. We were talking about manifestation, spell work, um, and there's an interesting point that came up. You might see sometimes people talking about changing timelines. It's a popular way nowadays that people can justify manifestation without calling it magic. In fact, I think a lot of the phenomenon of manifestation being discussed in popular culture, like YouTube. My YouTube algorithm certainly shows me a lot about manifestation. So the reason that that is more palatable to people in the current zeitgeist is because it doesn't make a magical claim, it's making metaphysical claims. And this really started in the 1900s. Without going off topic though, when we're talking about changing timelines, a different subject would be whether or not that's possible to change timelines. But what I'm proposing is that when you change timelines, if your manifestation is successful, or in a different typology, if your spell work is successful, or if your wish, if your prayer is successful, then you move to a very similar timeline, but with some changes that are the desirable changes. And the reason that people don't just widely believe in magic or manifestation or any of these things is because your consciousness is changing to that timeline, but you're changing to the entire material reality of that parallel reality. Like you're changing to the entire timeline. You're not in this reality anymore. You are now, if your manifestation is successful, you will then be in a new timeline. But the material reality includes your mind, because, well, it includes your brain. So your consciousness switches to the parallel reality, but that parallel reality has your physical body and brain and the memories from that timeline. So you'll frequently notice this, that if your manifestation is successful, at first you will, if you notice, you will be impressed. You'll temporarily have evidence that you've successfully done something that's impossible by our secular understanding of the world. But then you will notice what Neville Goddard calls the bridge of incidences, but the bridge of incidents. But it will be like a series of coincidences or causes and effects that led up to you knowing that this change that you have manifested into existence actually has a sensible explanation in that material reality. And that's because you didn't actually change anything except for your consciousness changing its its cosmic location into a parallel reality. So but your consciousness is indescribable by normal language. It's like a soul. It's a perspective sort of that is now operating this very, very, very similar body in a very similar reality. So another way I've heard this described is the law of continuity. So your mind will now have access to those memories from the new timeline, and so the memories from the old timeline won't match up with those. And so one of them has to be, if they contradict each other, which they're going to if you specifically got your manifestation, right? So now your mind chooses the one that is more real. That's what you're essentially doing with manifestation, is you're choosing to believe the parallel reality. And if you have the right practice with meditation and manifestation, you can actually move your consciousness to the one you found that has the qualities that you wanted in your manifestation. I hope that makes sense. So because of that, the law of continuity is that you the effect of it is that you gradually stop believing that you manifested it, and you just believe that that timeline is reality and always has been, and it doesn't seem magical or metaphysical anymore that you've changed anything. You just like your life now. You're a little bit better. And so this is a principle that is like, one of those things that from my perspective, like a lot of spiritual truths, from my perspective is true because I have experienced this. And then there's other people out there who have experienced that or something similar, or that is in alignment with how I just described it. So they're going to know what I'm talking about. And then there's some people where they wish that was true, but the best they can do is sort of want it to be true and believe it on faith and try to put that into practice by trying to do rituals and spells and prayers and a manifestation technique. So it's like until somebody is successful and then experiences that, there isn't any way in the material reality to prove those manifestation techniques or spells are real. Like you have to do it yourself, and then you will notice that you've been doing it constantly your whole life. So that's why it's difficult to talk about, because our language is made to communicate with other minds, like other versions of a consciousness inhabiting a body in the material world. You're sending sound waves out into the material world using your mouth or using the written language or some kind of manipulation of the physical world using your body. And so because of that, it's circumventing like the spiritual world to get the message there. And so language is not an appropriate way to like pass these truths on. And that's why you'll a lot of times see someone like struggle to describe it. It's always described in like a metaphor or something that they can't quite prove to the other person except in a mythopoetic way of describing it. So yeah, I just want to keep this short, but that's my main point, just to sum up, that it's, if you are successful with a spell or with a manifestation, and if you change timelines, what, like in all of those things, what you're actually doing is moving your consciousness to a parallel reality with some slight differences that are the specific thing you wanted. And that is, it looks like you're manipulating your reality, but what you're actually doing is entirely changing your reality. So you're not doing anything like this debate sometimes of like, changing other people's mind, like attracting somebody's attention or changing their mind on something or something like that. There's ethical issues in there to be discussed, no doubt. But the reason most of it ends up being okay to do, in my opinion, is because you're leaving that old circumstance entirely in the previous reality. If your manifestation works from that point forward, it is what was meant to happen in that reality anyway. So it never feels wrong after it's successful. So that part is a difficult one to get over too. It's not just about belief, but it's about all of these moral quandaries of it. Is this mind control? Is this like stealing or getting something I don't deserve? So it's like that's why sometimes magic is described in those terms and then like frowned upon or outlawed in various cultures. So key point being, whenever you do a spell or a prayer or a manifestation technique and then it is successful, what quickly happens is your entire understanding of reality changes, so that the memory of the way your life was before the spell was cast, before the prayer was uttered, that fades, and you start to believe that you didn't do anything at all to cause this manifestation to become real. It manifested just by bridge of incidents, by coincidence. And you'll be like, well, I don't have any proof that my prayer brought that about. So that's why, you continually have to manipulate your own ability to believe. So I do want to keep it short, so I'm going to stop the video now. For one thing, it makes it easier to upload the video. So I'm trying to get more disciplined about that, because sometimes I'll rant. Next thing I know, it's like an hour later and it takes forever to upload the video. So thank you so much for listening if that's the case.